welcome. Thanks so much for coming. My name is Terry Diamond. I'm your host for today. We have a couple of new people. Ellen, Bonnie, Natalie. Frank is here. Laura, welcome. So, thank you all so much for coming. Once again, my name is Terry Diamond. I'm the host of the seminar. Before we get started, you have some papers in front of you. If you'll notice, you have the 2023 brochure still because my marketing director told me that I look more like the lady on the front than my actual picture on the back. So, I have to get a new headshot done. What I did was I printed out the seminar schedule for 2024 because I know you're all asking about that. So it is here, it is planned out, it's on the second Tuesday of every month except for October. When I go to my conference, then it's on the third Tuesday. A couple of things I want to talk about. Next month we have End of Life Doula. Arlene is here. I'll have her say a few words about next month's seminar at the end if we have time. And then as you look through it, not sure why I just licked the microphone. Sorry. In July, there's a topic going from we to me. And that is going to be a really interesting conversation for those who have recently gone from we to me, who's lost a spouse or lost their significant other. And so I'm looking for volunteers to be panelists. So if anybody wants to volunteer, I have questions already ready. We can go over them, and I would have you come up here and be the panelist. So you don't have to, but if you'd like to participate in that seminar, please let me know. So I'm excited. A couple new topics coming up this year. I'm also going to repeat a couple of them, like Proposition 19 and what it means for you. That was a real good one. And then in-home caregiving will be repeated in September with new material, but it's always great to come back and refresh your mind. If you could turn off your cell phones, if you need the restrooms, they're off the door to the right. And that's all the housekeeping, I think. Once again, my name is Terry Diamond. I am a realtor with Berkshire Hathaway. Why would a realtor put on these presentations? And a lot of you have heard this before, but being a realtor is my day job. I am a certified senior housing professional, which the designation really entails a lot of extra education, a lot of extra study time, conferences, reading, and that's what makes me different from all the other realtors in this town. I think there are 1,400 of us. Okay, I am one of 7 certified senior housing professionals in the entire state. So that's how I'm different, but this is not about real estate. It's not a sales presentation. I'm not going to try to sell you something, but if you have questions about those, I'm always here to help. Whether it's a consultation, a meeting, planning, if I don't know, I can help send you to the right person. At the bottom of your stack, you're going to find an evaluation. For everybody that fills those out and hands them to me at the end of the seminar, I do a $50 drawing from all the people that fill them out and hand them in. So my seminars get better from the result of you giving me honest feedback. So please take the time, fill them out, and turn them in. What else? I think that's it. I want to introduce our guest today, Luciana. Most of you know her. For those who don't, Luciana is
behind the camera.
Oh yeah, she usually videotapes from me. And by the way, if you miss a presentation, my videos are very not professional as far as dubbing and editing. It's just what you see here. Luciana is a public health educator. She's an author and a memory care specialist with over 25 years of experience in brain health, memory, and dementia care. She was the Alzheimer's Association educator and care specialist in Santa Barbara, where she developed educational and supportive programs for families and professionals caring for those with dementia. Currently, Luciana serves as a director of community services for Villa Alomar, where she provides family support and health education. She was She is the author of Ahead with Dementia, and we're going to give away a couple of these as door prizes at the end. It's a really good book. I read it cover to cover, and sometimes I have problems reading an education book or a business book. I could not put that book down. It is so well written for the everyday person working with someone with dementia or Alzheimer's. So, great resource. And I'm also really proud to say she's my friend. So, warm welcome for Luciana.
Thank you so much.
Mary, thank you everybody. Before I start, I would like a little show of hands, because this is a topic that people sometimes try to avoid instead of coming, and try to learn more about it. So who here is here today because you're concerned about yourself? Show of hands. Thank you. Thank you. Who is here today because you're concerned about a loved one or a friend? Wonderful. Thank you. Yeah. And who is here but doesn't know what the heck you're doing here? Good, good. So that's the difference between mild cognitive impairment and dementia. We're learning something already, eh? Thank you. I'm going to tell you why I am here. I'm here because I'm passionate about caring for people with dementia and providing dignified care to those who are suffering from it. Dementia doesn't strike you all of a sudden, not the dementia that we're worried about as we get older. There are some different kinds of dementia, and I want to talk a little bit about the different kinds of dementia. And today, I'm just going to go with a really wide brush over all the topics related to dementia. So here's the reason why, the real reason why the dinosaurs got extinct. Who would have known that animals also get dementia and get memory loss? All right, so first thing, what the heck is dementia? Everybody talks about dementia, and many people refer to Alzheimer's and dementia as if it were the same thing. Alzheimer's, a person has Alzheimer's. Even doctors make that confusion. See somebody with dementia and think they have Alzheimer's. So, first of all, dementia, that shows you a little circle of what it is. Dementia is a serious loss of cognitive abilities, and that involves memory, but also involves perception, attention, judgment, reasoning. Judgment and reasoning, those are two really important skills. And as we grow older and develop a little bit of dementia, what happens? The reasoning and judgment start failing, and you become more of a target for scammers, for elder abuse, for people trying to get all your funding to a prince in Nigeria. So we have to be watchful of that. Abstraction, language, organization. So all those skills are at risk when we start developing dementia. And memory is the one that always gets the fame, right? People think, oh, it has dementia, her memory. But there are kinds of dementias where the memory is great. People have great memory, but where do you see the symptoms? In sometimes reasoning, sometimes judgment, and sometimes language. That also happens. So the medical definition is a little decline in memory and one of those: language, spatial skills, attention, planning, judgment, and organization. And to have dementia, to have a real diagnosis of dementia, those declines in cognitive abilities have to be strong enough to keep you from living your normal life, from doing what you want to do. If you have some decline on all of those, but you can still attend a presentation such as this and be there on time, dressed accordingly, you don't have dementia, you have MCI. MCI is mild cognitive impairment. So pretty much the difference is you can have all those deficits in all of your different cognitive functions, but you still be functional, so you don't have dementia. The moment you start showing up at a presentation a day later and wearing a bikini, that's when you have dementia. So it makes the difference clear. Yeah, you can ask me questions at any time, okay? All right, now we know that there's a difference. What are the different types of dementia? So we have dementia that start with non-progressive. It doesn't get worse. Normally, it actually gets better. Then static dementia. And those are the ones you will see on people who have had a brain injury. So people with brain injury, TBIs, after a car accident, after a big stroke, overnight they have a huge difference in cognitive ability. That is dementia, but it's not progressive. People go through therapy and get much better. We're going to see that. Or progressive dementia, and the progressive dementia is the one that sneaks upon you. It starts with a little bit of deficit here and there. We'll talk about that. But it starts growing and growing and growing, becomes MCI, and at some point you cannot live your normal life the way you want to live it. So that would be the progressive. So here we have a few examples, and you will recognize these people. Gabrielle Gifford, she was shot in the head. You remember that? It has been many years ago. And I don't know if you remember, after she was shot in the head, she couldn't barely speak. She couldn't barely walk. She had a big deficit cognitively. And now, years later, she is doing speeches. She's out there in the public. She's doing way better. So with therapy, it gets better. Bob Woodruff, he was in Iraq, and a bomb exploded, an IED exploded close to him, and he had like a massive brain injury. A big chunk of his head got blown off, and now he is back, fully functional, working. So with therapy, it gets better. And Sharon Stone, a lot of people don't even know that, but she had a really big stroke, and she did lose a lot of her functionality cognitively, and she's again back to normal. So head injury, stroke, a infection such a brain infection like meningitis. A lot of people with meningitis have dementia related to that, but again, it gets better. Now, that's not what we are worried about here, is it? We are worried about the other kind, the kind that gets worse with time. So there are many, many reasons, over 50 different kinds of progressive dementia, 50 different kinds. But these are the most common ones. Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's is about 70% of all of the dementias that we know of, because we're still learning so much about it. We have Gene Wilder as an example of Alzheimer's dementia. We can think of a lot of people in our past, and people who we really enjoy. And even Ronald Reagan had Alzheimer's disease while he was president. So, it's common, it's out there, and, if you have it, you are in good company. Lewy body's disease. Lewy body's disease is a different form of dementia that can exist by itself, freestanding, but it's also many times associated with Parkinson's disease. If you have just Parkinson's, you have Parkinson's disease. If you have Parkinson's and you have dementia, you have Parkinson's disease with Lewy body's dementia. It's different than Alzheimer's because it causes more hallucinations, and the memory sometimes is more intact, but the symptoms are different. frontotemporal dementia, and we have a example recently that really breaks my heart. Bruce Willis has frontotemporal dementia. Affects people highly differently under the umbrella of frontotemporal dementia. There are several different other dementias that have been identified. Sometimes it starts in the language center of the brain. Sometimes it starts in the reasoning centers. Sometimes people are just very angry and upset because it starts in the emotional center of the brain. So it varies in people, but it can be devastating. And people with frontotemporal dementia tend to have really good memory, but many times a little higher level of frustration. Now, vascular dementia is interesting. I bet everybody here has some vascular issues, and that happens with just being human. But vascular dementia, you can see more in people 90 and over, or if in younger people, it's more related to lifestyle. So we're going to talk a little bit about that too, but vascular dementia is very common. So if you have vascular dementia, that means that your blood vessels have been obstructed, interrupted, and blood is not getting to your brain as it should. So brain cells start dying and your brain is not functioning very normal. So any of these four dementias are the most common ones, and you'll hear people relating to them. Alzheimer's gets the famous one because, first of all, we have a very strong group of people in the Alzheimer's Association pulling for research and for development of new drugs and therapies for it. But many of the treatments that we have for Alzheimer's are also the treatments that we have for the other dementias, because really we don't know how to cure it. We don't know how to stop it. We don't know how to slow down. We know a few things that we can do to make it better, but none of it will revert the symptoms. None of it will slow down significantly. There are some strategies that we can use, but we're still learning. And I can tell you, the most that we've ever learned about any of these diseases, and Alzheimer's was discovered in 1905. So we're talking about 120 years almost of knowing the existence of Alzheimer's disease. Most that we've ever learned was in the past 10 years. And that's because finally we're paying attention to this disease. So what happens with Alzheimer's? Let's talk just a little bit about Alzheimer's. This, a little picture of a healthy brain in comparison with advanced Alzheimer's disease. Because at the beginning of the Alzheimer's disease, we can see much of a difference in the brain itself. The brain looks normal at the beginning of the Alzheimer's disease. We just see a difference in the way people behave. They're like, oh, this is funny. She's not doing it the way she used to do, or she's not behaving exactly the same. But the changes have already happened. So the brain cells start dying, and once they start dying, they don't get replaced. It's not like skin, like if you have an accident and you scrape your skin off, you can expect that after a few weeks, the skin will recompose itself. You have brand new skin going on there. Not with the brain. The brain cells die and they stay dead. So with advanced Alzheimer's disease, you see a brain looking like Swiss cheese, missing places with big holes in it. And that's the difficulty in diagnosing at first Alzheimer's disease is because the brain, you take a picture of the brain and it looks normal, it looks funny. So many times the doctors ask you to come back over and over after 6 months, after a year, to do more testing. So what's happening in the brain? So this is, if we were at a microcellular level, this is what you would see of a normal brain. 100 billion of those cells. There are so many brain cells in there, 100 billion of them. Each one has its own blood vessel. Each one receives blood freshly right there. It's a very intricate system. So that would be a healthy brain. And this is a brain with Alzheimer's disease. There are these little clumps of protein here that are really gumming the functioning of your brain. And those are the beta amyloid plaques. So a protein that lives normally within all of us, we need it to function. It starts breaking down and becoming this jelly, icky substance that really gums the functioning of the brain. And on top of that, there are two components of Alzheimer's disease, the amyloid and then the tangles of tau. The tangles of tau are inside the brain cell. So inside the brain cell, another kind of protein named tau. I just find it so amazing that a name that is so lovely, and it reminds me of peace and tranquility. Tau is one of the horrible proteins that starts killing your brain from the inside of the cells out. And those two components together are associated with the disease, but we don't know the causation. We don't know if the disease causes the breakdown of the protein or if the protein causes the disease. So we're still learning about that, and the scientists are really working, to find out a cure for it and treatments for it. Another big cause of disease for the brain is vascular obstruction. And we see people who have a problem with vascular system, they get Alzheimer's at a younger age, and Alzheimer's is more rampant. They get all other kinds of dementia and at younger age, and it's more abrasive. It goes faster. So this is one of the things that people ask me, what can we do to either prevent or, delay the onset of Alzheimer's? Take care of your vessels, take care of your blood vessels. So cholesterol levels, plaque growing inside the vessels, they lead to aneurysm and stroke. So if you have stroke, you're having a problem with vascular. So your brain is also malfunctioning because of that. And that's what happens. A vascular obstruction will cause blood not to go to the brain. And once one brain cell is cut off his blood supply, the brain cell dies within 5 minutes. There's not much time. 5 minutes for the brain cell to recover. And once it's dead, it's dead. It doesn't come back. So the main thing that we all have to do to prevent or delay the symptoms of the disease is doing everything we can to keep a good vascular system. With that in mind, the risk factors, one is age. As we age, everything starts kind of declining in your body, including your vessels and your brain. So we cannot help with that. We can help with the other risk factors. And you see, everything is related to good vascular system. So whatever affects your heart is also affecting your brain. Sedentary life, that's the main risk factor. You need to exercise because the exercise circulates the blood and keeps that blood flowing freely to the brain. Obesity is one of the higher risk factors. Actually increases your risk for Alzheimer's disease and other dementias by 80%. So Heart disease, when you have heart disease, you normally will have some cognitive impairment because one thing goes with the other. Diabetes increases your risk by 30%. High cholesterol, I don't have a number for it, but the cholesterol is what is causing the blood vessels to gum. Not good. High blood pressure, and of course family history. I put family history on the bottom because everybody thinks that because my mom had Alzheimer's, I would probably have it. Not necessarily. There's one kind of Alzheimer's that's genetic, and it's the one that people get it at younger age. Like people in their 40s and 50s, when they get Alzheimer's, that's a genetic form of Alzheimer's. But if mom got Alzheimer's in mid-70s or 80s, no, that's not genetic. So taking care of all the other factors that you can could really make a difference in avoiding getting sick with it. Okay, did I scare everybody already properly? Okay, a breather. Any questions? Okay, good. We'll move on then. Initial symptoms. That's what we need to pay attention to. And I have here this little thing here has the 10 early signs of Alzheimer's. A lot of good information on this table here. 10 early signs of Alzheimer's. But basically, in Alzheimer's disease, in particular, the biggest telltale of Alzheimer's disease is the inability to retain new information. People call it short-term memory, but it's not short-term memory. It's actually inability to retain new information. It's like, Dad, I'm coming tomorrow to pick you up for lunch. Be ready at 11. I get there at 11 and my dad is in pajamas. Dad, didn't I tell you to be ready? We're going to your favorite restaurant. Dad looks at me very seriously and says, you didn't tell me. I would never miss an opportunity to go to my favorite restaurant. Like the conversation never existed. So what is new to them, it's difficult to retain. That's because Alzheimer's starts in a little area of the brain called a hippocampus. And the hippocampus is the little part of the brain that's responsible to make those little short-term memories stick. So it doesn't. They can remember everything from 40 years ago, their first car, their first girlfriend, the years in college, the first child, can remember everything from the past. They cannot remember what they had for breakfast. So if that's what you're seeing, that's a really good indication of Alzheimer's. So when somebody comes to us and say, yeah, I see changes in my mom, I want to hear from them, what are the changes? What is it that you're seeing? The funny thing is that because they forget, they can't recall and they can tell you. So people with Alzheimer's are poor self-reporters. They sometimes are not able to tell you that they forgot because they forgot. Yeah, makes sense? So normally we want to talk to a caregiver, to somebody who is close to them, to know exactly what the symptoms are. And you see things, like in losing keys and putting places in unusual locations. But that's related to the short-term memory. If one of the tricks to deal with this stage of Alzheimer's is being really organized and putting things at the same place. Like I have a little hook for the keys. When I get into my house, and that's where I put every day in the same place. So I'm kind of preparing myself to having Alzheimer's one day. And when I do, I will suffer a little less from looking all over the house for the keys, because I'm already used to putting that. You will hear the opposite though. You will hear that to keep your brain healthy, you need to do things differently. That's a completely different story. Doing things differently help your brain stays younger and continue learning things. But if you already have Alzheimer's, you are fighting for your functionality. And having that organization is going to help you big time. Familiar tasks, that's another one. I worked at Jody House that had brain injury, and I had this young man who would come to my office every day. Luciana, I'm gonna make coffee. How do I make coffee? Every day. I would say, you go to the machine and you put a little paper. Then he would go to the machine and put a little paper there and come back to my office and say, I put the paper, what do I do next? Now you put the coffee beans in the paper. And I had to give to him every day the instructions, step by step by step. If I just say to him, you can go and make coffee, he would not know how to make it. I had to break down in various steps, and that was every day, every day, every day. So that's what you see as a symptom too, the inability to do a task that takes several steps, no matter how familiar you are with those tasks. You will see that. One of the biggest problems is lack of initiative, apathy, because everything becomes so complicated. I can't make things the way I used to do, and things are difficult. So apathy comes with it, and that's a challenge for the caregiver, the person who's taking care of you, that, how do I keep him involved? How do I keep him happy and doing the things they want to do? They need a structure, they need supervision, and that when the first symptoms start appearing, there may not be information for the doctor, so they will diagnose you with mild cognitive impairment, but it already could be the beginning of something more like Alzheimer's. And as the disease progresses, what is doesn't matter, the facts don't matter so much, it's more about emotions. Really, you have to pay attention of people's emotions, because they get highly sensitive, very frustrated. How are we doing? So those are the caregiving challenges: communications, providing increased supervision, taking care. You have to take charge of the decision making, because if a person is suffering from lack of judgment and reasoning, you need to make sure they are not giving their money away, they are still paying their bills on time, and all those things are happening. Adapting to the caregiver role. Sometimes the caregiver is a spouse, and now you feel more like the mother or the father. It changes the role. Sometimes you are a child and it reverses. Getting help from family members. Sometimes people don't understand that you need help caring for your loved ones. And taking time for yourself. Making sure you grieve, because the grief of a person who is losing somebody to Alzheimer's starts a diagnosis. It doesn't start when the person actually gets sick. And the cost. The cost of taking care of somebody with dementia or Alzheimer's, and we're all going to use those interchangeably, is 3 times as much as with other diseases, because they require care and supervision, sometimes 24/7. So it is a very expensive disease to take care of. So if you think that you or somebody you love is having some of those symptoms, you need to first get a thorough medical evaluation and then think about your legal planning. How are you going to address your life, your well-being, and your state, your stuff when you're hopefully not get to that point, but if you get to the point that you cannot speak for yourself, you have to have those things organized ahead of time. Learn all you can about dementia. That's why I write books. That's why I write articles. I want people to be aware of what's coming ahead and not be surprised once things start crumbling and you can make costly mistakes. And build your support system. You can't do this alone. To get a diagnosis of dementia, you go to the doctor, and the doctor is going to do a lot of testing for you. The laboratory tests now, they include amyloid tests. So the doctor at very early symptoms of dementia can now do amyloid tests. This is new. This didn't happen just 3 years ago. But now, if you are suspected of having Alzheimer's, you can have an amyloid test that will give you the positive or not for Alzheimer's disease. But remember, Alzheimer's is not the only one. There are another 49 plus conditions that can cause dementia.
Can we go to the regular primary care physician, or is there somebody special?
Great question. Some primary care physicians are very equipped to diagnose and care for a person with Alzheimer's and dementia, but there are very few of them. The right or the most appropriate doctor would be a neurologist. So if you have a heart disease, you want to go to the cardiologist. You have something going on in your brain, you want to go to the neurologist. And with the caveat, not all neurologists are equipped to deal with Alzheimer's disease and other forms of dementia. Some of them don't even want to touch patients with those conditions. So it's a good idea to either contact the Alzheimer's Association and ask for the ones in your area, or even better, my preference is contact a support group in your area. There are support groups all over the place, even on Zoom if you don't want to get out of your house. And people are talking about the local doctors, who is good, who is not. And that's where you really get the best information about who the best doctors are. So this is what you could expect from a good test. Sometimes they give you that mini mental. We've heard a lot of mini mental on the news nowadays. Mini mental would be like 30 questions actually, 30 points for, who is the president? What year is it? Where are you? What state? A monkey could pass a mini mental. Really, it's poorly designed, and if you pass the mini mental, yay. But it's not something to brag about. It's just a little tool that they have. You really want to have a thorough examination with all those tests. So if you go to the doctor gives you a mini mental and you pass and like, oh, you don't have a problem. You do have a problem. You need a different doctor. Got it? Yeah? Okay, good. Treatments for dementia, we don't have many. Medications for cognitive symptoms have existed for the past 30 years. They help a lot at the very beginning stages. This is how they work, the cognitive symptoms medication. They don't make your brain better. They don't treat the disease itself. They don't treat the plaques. What they do is agitate your brain. That's what they do. They make your brain cells a little happier. So you do remember better when you're taking those. And like, who doesn't want to remember better? I can't remember names to save my life. I'm horrible with names. If I were taking those medications, I would be able to remember everybody's names here. It would be great. Why don't I do that? Because I wouldn't be able to sleep at night. It would agitate my sleep, and oh, God knows, I need my sleep at night. So I don't take them, and if with people with dementia, depending on the dementia, it's a good thing, but it could also agitate them. So if a person has dementia and is feeling agitated, combative, frustrated, they shouldn't be taking those either, because it makes those symptoms worse. And they only work at the beginning. Medications for emotional symptoms. Why do they have emotional symptoms? Because they're frustrated. They're adults. They want to go around driving in the car and doing the things they want to do. But they can't. They're having problems. And the frustration causes problems, and sometimes they are in behavior, but there's also some psychiatric issues related to dementia. So the antidepressants, antipsychotics, and sedatives, they help. And then we have medications for the beta amyloid plaques. I have a handout here on the table explaining the medications for beta amyloid. They were approved very recently. The most recent one was just last year in July. And that's great. They cost $60,000 a year. They are by infusion. It's not a pill that you take. You have to go there every month and get an infusion of it. They have a little side effect. They make your brain explode. So, and some people don't like that. And also, they work in delaying, listen to this, delaying the symptoms for up to 6 months. Yeah. Those are the great drugs that they are touting about, great advance. Of course, it's a beginning, but delaying symptoms by 6 months, spending a fortune on the medication and having to go there every month, and it only worked for the very beginning people. So people who have already symptoms established, it doesn't work for them. So, I'm not a big favor of those. If you want to do that, now there's a lot of research coming around on other levels. And for me, the most exciting was the one that recently came out, and it's widespread, about multivitamins. Who here takes multivitamins? Yeah. I take it every day, and it will delay the symptoms for 2 years. It costs $10 a month. You can get them at Walmart. You can get them at Costco, and it's great. So that's where we are with Alzheimer's and other dementias.
I really appreciate your comment about the newer infused medication, because people have so much unrealistic expectation about it, and expectations, and it's not.
That's what is said about it, is giving people hope. Hope is good. Everybody likes hope, but false hope. It's kind of cruel to me. And
then on the cognitive symptoms, stimulants, nightmares, agitation and nightmares are a big problem with those.
Agitation and nightmares. So if you are taking the medications that every doctor will prescribe for the early symptoms, especially the Aricept, and you're having those troublesome nightmares, you need to stop taking those, because those are making it worse. Yeah. Got it? Now, another big issue, it's not just about treatments and lifestyle. You need to be prepared. You need to be prepared. You have to have a living will, a durable power of attorney. You don't know at what point you won't be able to speak for yourself. You need to have your advanced healthcare directives, and because those things are here to protect you from being a victim of the system, or for having people who have no idea what your wishes are to making decisions for yourself. It is possible that a person with dementia at some point will not be able to express themselves either verbally or even intellectually with the reasoning and the judgment that they had before. So to me, the most important decision one has to make is who is going to make those decisions for me when I can no longer speak for myself. Is it gonna be my spouse? Is it gonna be my daughter? Does my daughter have the same views on end of life and care that I have? Because I don't want anybody to do something that's against their own principles. And is my daughter responsible enough to take care of all those things for me? So that is a really big decision for a person. So once you decide, make sure that they have the right instruments to take care of themselves, take care of you when you cannot. Because you can tell their issues all your life, tell them what you want, but if they don't have a durable power of attorney to put it in place, you are going to be conserved. Nobody wants to be in a conservatorship.
One more option is that if, say you don't have a spouse, or you don't want to put that person in charge, or you don't have family, is to use a fiduciary as your conservator.
Fiduciaries are great. They are licensed and bounded, and they can, if you don't want to put these responsibilities onto a loved one, they are professionals who have to act on your best interest. You leave everything that you want written on the paper, and they will have to follow your directions. I'm not going to go too much into any one particular of this paperwork, but just keep in mind, this is the time to do it. This is the time to put those instruments in place while you have your cognition, while you know what you want. You may change your mind later, and it's fine. But if you develop dementia, you will need to have those things in order. And remember that dementia can happen for people who also have a car accident or a trauma to the head. It could happen to us at any time. And it's nice to have those things in place before it happens. For those who do not have the paperwork in order, the only way of taking care of them is through a guardianship or a conservatorship. And then you have a judge making decisions for you, and it can be disastrous. Yeah. And then another thing to consider right away is, how are we going to care for ourselves or for our loved ones? So there are levels of care, and normally as the disease progresses, you keep adding to the levels of care. It starts with family, friends, and community. Sometimes you have people just checking on you, making sure that you are fed correctly, that you have enough heat in the house, you're comfortable, and that you have food in the refrigerator. So, your friends and families can sometimes start watching over you a little bit. There are daycare centers. In Santa Barbara, the Friendship Center is a really great resource where people can go, spend the day, take classes. Is good for the brain. They have a great program called Connections, and those are classes that are meant to stimulate the brain and keep your thinking skills fresh. great program. In-home care, it comes to a point that all that help, the friendship center, the friends, it's not enough. You need to have somebody else to make sure you're taking your pills correctly, remember? People can't remember sometimes if they took their pills or not. Sometimes they don't take, that time they take twice. It could be a problem. So in-home care, in Santa Barbara, if you need in-home care, you're going to be paying about $30 to $35 an hour for somebody to come and watch over your loved one. So if you need that around the clock, that can go up to like $20,000 easy a month. And very few families can afford that. Then on the next level, if you're spending about $20,000 in-home care, it becomes obvious that you might need assisted living and assisted living with memory care or dementia care. And that in Santa Barbara is costing around $10,000 a month to have. You can get a little less and you can get a little more. What does determine if you can get less or more is behavioral issues and other health. Because sometimes also people with dementia, they have other concomitant health issues that need to be attended, so the cost of care would be increased. I've seen people in our area paying $20,000 a month for care. In this, remember, it's 3 times as much as any other disease because you have to provide the supervision. Skilled nursing is, before we even move, Medicare doesn't pay for assisted living. People sometimes are shocked to know that it's all out of pocket. Medicare doesn't pay. Medi-Cal is starting to pay for some of it, but not in Santa Barbara County. Pays for it in Bakersfield, pays for it in Los Angeles County. There's a program for that, Medi-Cal. But right now there's almost a year-long list for somebody to get into one of those facilities, the Medi-Cal approved. Not in Santa Barbara, not yet. Then skilled nursing is paid by Medicare, only up to 100 days a year. And Medi-Cal will pay for it if you have a physical need in addition to the financial need. So it's tied to your inability to pay plus your physical needs. Skilled nursing, I have to say, we have really great skilled nursing in Santa Barbara, and we have people with dementia living in those, like it's their home, in those skilled nursing because they cannot pay for a assisted living situation. It is sad because a skilled nursing is not prepared to deal with the emotional problems that a person with dementia. They need stimulation, they need love. At the memory care where I work, Villa Alamar, I enter the place and start hugging and kissing everybody, and I'm checking on everybody without they even noticing that I'm checking on them. They need love, they need supervision, they need stimulation. In a skilled nursing, a nurse will come and put a plate on the tray beside you and leave. And they may come back an hour later. If the tray is empty or not, they will take it away. People with dementia need encouragement and need help and need somebody. You need to be a cheerleader for them. You don't have that in skilled nursing. And that's why when you look at the numbers, countrywide, if you are a person with dementia living in assisted living, the longevity would be about 4 years in assisted living, and in a skilled nursing 4 months. It's a big difference. Mm-hmm. And hospice care is also paid by Medicare and Medi-Cal. And hospice care is hospice is a great program, and it was originally made to help people with cancer at end of life. But In terms of Alzheimer's and dementia, is weird because a person can live with Alzheimer's for a long, long time. And they look like they're failing, but they continue going and going and going. So we often see people with dementia outliving, your wildest expectations. And sometimes they live for many, many years, and they go in and out of hospice. They go into hospice when they decline, they get better, and then they get discharged from hospice. So for the families, it's a roller coaster because people are bouncing up and down from hospice. But that's the origin of the disease.
I'm just wondering about how many years are we talking that one can live with full-blown dementia?
Okay. Great question. How long does a person live with dementia? Okay, let's see. I have something here. All right. These are the stages of Alzheimer's disease. There's a stage asymptomatic, the beginning stages of the disease, 10 to 15 years, no symptoms. Then symptomatic, early stage is normally like 2 to 6, middle stage 2 to 10, late stage 1 year, but my mother-in-law lived on the late stage for 8 years. 8 years not recognizing her own face in the mirror. So it really depends on how well prepared your body is. It's 100% fatal disease, but some people can live a long, long time. I had, the longest I've heard was 26 years with Alzheimer's. And other dementias are different, depending on what kind of condition the rest of your body is. Yeah.
What's the determination of entering hospice for someone with Alzheimer's? If they have a concomitant disease that looks fatal sooner, how does that work?
There is a firm list of symptoms provided by Medicare that would determine, and if you're losing weight at a certain point, you have other diseases that will show, and it's left somehow to the discretion of the doctor, the prescribing doctor. So a doctor will have to prescribe you a hospice, a service. And the major thing would be an expectation of living of 6 months or less.
That's what I wondered.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so-
Yeah, so a lot of people outlive that 6 months, and then they get reinstated, or they get discharged of hospice. Yeah.
And this varies depending upon what type of brain, what type of cognitive impairment you have, correct?
That's correct. Different kinds of dementia, yes. The real answer to that question, how long does a person live? We don't know. We don't know.
They don't usually die from Alzheimer's. They die from other disease states, pneumonia, for example.
They do die from Alzheimer's if they survive the other stuff. Yes, because remember that the Swiss cheese brain, it comes to a point that brain is unable to sustain your basic body functions. They can't swallow at some point. So we change their diet to make it easier to swallow. They can't, even sustain their body up, and can't sustain the heartbeat, and they do die. Yeah.
I have a question about how doctors determine early stage versus middle stage.
Let me see if I have here.
Okay. My best answer. Oh, sorry. She's interested of knowing the different stages of the disease. How does it go? My best answer to that, I have here a handout with the stages of Alzheimer's disease, and it's separated by initial, mid, and late stages. This is a really good map, and it shows you the symptoms. It will show you really well how anybody can look at this and say, oh, this person is at one stage or another. So it's here for you. I have one that's a little bigger actually. And I actually put this on my website available to people because it's the most frequent question. What I do, tell people to do is a painting in yellow, the symptoms you have already observed, and it will give you a little roadmap. Wherever the symptoms are most, that's where they are in the stage. But the main stage that I am very concerned about, everybody is stage 6. Let me get this to you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, the stage 6 is very obvious. It's the very beginning of a later stage. 7 stages of the disease, Alzheimer's. The stage 6 is when a person starts, not everybody, but some people do, having hallucinations, delusions, and really strong emotional impulses. So that's also when the family starts really having problems caring for them at home. They don't want to bathe. They don't want to do the things they need to do to stay healthy. They want to take pills. They get mad at you. Sometimes they start eating just one thing, like mashed potatoes. That's all they want to eat, mashed potatoes. And it's not reasonable. It's not healthy, but they will fight you tooth and nail because that's what they want. So that is, to me, the stage where people start like, oh my God, I need help here, please, and maybe sometimes it's already too late to avoid some costly mistakes. I really encourage everybody, if you see the very first symptoms, look for medical help, do all your financial. We had a financial advisor here in December, Eric. Time to talk to Eric. If you're seeing the very first symptoms, time to talk to Eric, because if you don't, you may not be prepared for the later stages, and there's really not a time frame for any of that to happen.
I would like to thank you for being here today and giving us this presentation. I only wish that a number of the family members that I've met with that are dealing with a parent with dementia could have heard your presentation, particularly one part. They feel it's very beneficial to have sympathy. They tell Mom, you don't have to make the bed in the morning anymore. You don't have to fix any meals. You don't have to clean up after meals. You don't have to make coffee. If you don't feel like it, you don't have to take a walk with us daily. And they don't understand or realize the importance of keeping the physical part of the person active while they're dealing with the dementia. How do you deal with people who think, oh, I don't want Mom to have to do that when she's going through so much else?
Education. Nobody is prepared to deal with this disease. Because remember, it's inside the brain. She looks normal. She looks fine. She doesn't have a problem. It's not like having a broken leg that everybody knows my leg is broken, they will help me. It's inside my brain. I look normal. I look fine. So they cannot really grasp the gravity of the situation. So that's why we write books. That's why we write articles. That's why we go speak everywhere. And education is the first thing you need to do when you're dealing with this, when you're looking at these things. Learn all you can about, because a person with dementia will become a reflection of what you are, how you're treating them. They are grown-up people. They deserve dignity. They deserve the respect, and you need to know individually. People that say that if you know one person with dementia, you know one person. I remember that. I've met thousands of people with dementia, and each one is completely unique. Their disease is different. The homes that they need are different. The care that they need is different, and their approach is different. Just as much as we are all individual people, when we are with a healthy brain, we are all different people when we have a brain with dementia. There's no two people alike, and we need to be able to treat them with the dignity they deserve.
Question. You mentioned your website, is that, as a handout?
Oh, yes. The website I mentioned was the one, it's called Ahead of Dementia, aheadofdementia.com. I have a lot of resources in there, and that's where you will find information about the books I've written and other resources as well. The Alzheimer's Association has a lot of resources. Please, you can spend days looking at the Alzheimer's Association website and not read 2 lines, the same.
Just to say it's on Amazon audiobooks, and I just listened to her book, so
Thank you.
it's just like got 5 stars on it.
It's available in audio, and yes, and I have 2 kinds of books. Actually, let me show you, because this is important. This one here is for caregivers, has all the information that, I don't say all, but I put an A to Z, and I want it to be quick because caregivers don't have time, they're busy. And then there's this other one here for the people who are having problems, who are on MCI or having the first symptoms. That is like a cheerleader for you. That gives you the tools. What can I do if I'm having my memories? Things about having the key on the hook or taking notes or how to do that. So this is for the people with dementia. And I just want to leave you, because time is of the essence, I just want to leave you with a last thought here. Not a fun one, but most of America's baby boomers will spend their retirement years either living with Alzheimer's disease or caring for someone with Alzheimer's. So, and this is so true.
I want to throw something in that I learned at the Parkinson's support group. There's a lot of Parkinson's patients also end up with dementia. And I wrote it down and I remind myself every day. And it's DARE, D-A-R-E. Don't argue, reason, or explain. And believe me, life is a lot easier when you dare and don't do those things.
I love you. I coined the term. It's in my book. Yeah, dare. And people at the support groups are like, dare.
So, I'd like to, were you pointing to me?
Yeah.
I would like to follow that point with, a relative of mine is in the early to middle stage, and I think does not acknowledge, having Alzheimer's. And, no one is really quite ready to get him to understand that he has Alzheimer's, to name it. How important is that for the person who suffers and for those who care?
There are some people who can, and some people who cannot understand their own disease. It's easier for the ones who can understand to do all the things you need to do to prevent it from getting better and to being a better care partner on your own care, right? But if they don't, you shouldn't be forcing it upon them, because they actually lack of the ability to understand and to accept that. So another challenge for the caregivers, we sometimes have to tiptoe around the issues, and sometimes having a doctor who understands that. Like, I don't know if you remember Dr. Harbaugh here. He's retired now, but she is a genius. And he would never say to a person, you have dementia. you have Alzheimer's. He would say, yeah, your memory is not doing well. And he wouldn't say, oh, here's your Erbicep. You should take these vitamins. You know, you tiptoe around the issue, but you get the care delivered. And that's the important thing. So it's a bigger challenge for the caregiver, but for the person, we have to meet them where they are, not try to bring them to our reality. It's hard to understand that.
Is there any evidence of having pets being a positive?
Yes, yes. Pets are great for people with dementia. They provide, companionship. They provide that reason to go out and exercise, walk them. People with dementia are horrible for pets, though. Yeah, pets of people with dementia are over neglected. They don't go to the doctor. They have bad teeth. They are overweight. So if you have a person with dementia who has a pet, it's wonderful for the person, but please be mindful of the poor pet, because I know I've seen horror stories for the pets.
How do you know when to make difficult decisions, like when it's time to get care, when it's time to stop driving, when it's time this? How do you know when to make those types of difficult decisions?
That's a great question. How do you gauge the care and the strategies? Because this is a disease that will progress, in each one will have a different curve on their progression. So we always have to gauge the care accordingly to where they are, and also thinking where they are heading. I like to do everything ahead of time and put the preventative measures a little ahead. That's why the book is ahead of dementia. But you have to be very sensitive and very tuned in. Always think of safety first. My 3 pillars are safety, comfort, and contentment. So those are the 3 pillars for making sure that the person is doing the best they can. And if you are to gauge any level of care, always consider the person on their worst, because there will be variations. We all have good days and bad days, but if you're dealing with somebody who is progressing into dementia, consider their worst days, and that's what you have to provide for. So, for example, in the driving that you mentioned, people can drive well at noon and not so well at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So you gauge your decisions on the worst. Like how is he driving on his worst day? That's what you're going to be based for. Not, today he stopped at a stop sign, but yesterday he went right through. So that's your concern. What's his worst?
Other questions? Yes.
Do you know if there's a support group for young adults dealing with a parent?
Absolutely, absolutely. The Alzheimer's Association locally has a wonderful support group for children of parents. So please contact them and find out. Yeah. Okay.
My gosh. Okay, we learned a whole bunch of things. Yes, thank you, Luciana. Couple of things. So for those people that are new to my seminar, I always do drawings just for showing up. We give away 2 $25 gift cards just for coming, and then Luciana brought some books that we're also going to give away through a drawing. If you don't win a book, I highly, highly recommend you go to Amazon and order it. You can download it as a Kindle, you can download it as an audiobook, or you can get the hardback book. I've read this cover to cover. A lot of the questions that were addressed here today, you can find in the book. Especially, I was going to say, how do you get a person, say, to the doctor, even for an initial exam, if you think they have Alzheimer's? And it gives a lot of helpful hints just for that.
Do they have that at Chaucer's?
We do. Yeah, great. Chaucer's. Yes, great.
The legal library has a deal with Amazon where readers can order a book. Okay, it sends them from Amazon. Okay, and they get to keep it for 2 months, I think.
Wow.
Okay, they don't have to pay for it. The library has a deal with Amazon. They have to give it back to the library after the 2 month period, but it's an inexpensive way to get a hold of a book.
That's great to know. Did everybody hear that? Gilead Valley,
Keep this book. You will want to keep it. You won't want to keep it.
It's called the ZIP program.
the ZIP program.
Yeah.
So Gilead Library has a deal with Amazon where you order the book through the library, keep it for a period of time, and then return it to the library for no charge. Please fill out your surveys. Okay, like I said, I do a drawing for one $50 gift certificate. The surveys help me do better presentations for you. So I hope you all enjoyed the presentation. I want to take a minute and introduce next month's speaker. Do you have a minute?
Sure.
She's just going to take a few minutes to talk about next month's presentation. Thank you all, new and regular people that come. I really appreciate your support. And I look forward to seeing you all next month. Arlene, come on up. Oh, after her, we'll do our drawings too.
Hi, everybody. Luciana is a friend of my heart. Great presentation, always. And I also wanted to call out my friend Lee Hoyt, who is also an end-of-life doula. How many of you have heard that term, end-of-life doula? Okay, so how many of you think you know what doulas can do? So. Okay, so we're good. So now that your curiosity is piqued, I want to invite you to come next month. We will be doing a presentation. We work in concert with people like Luciana and all the agencies in town. And here's the secret. We have 7 doulas in Santa Barbara, and our magic price for service is free. So come next week, see how you can access, learn what we do, see how you can access us and when to use us now. Thanks.
Hey, Charlie.
May I say just one little thing?
Because every person with dementia is different, we do a lot of consultations with families. My card is here. I don't charge for that. Please, if you need personable information, I'm available at any time.
Thank you. And to tag on to that, on your surveys, you'll see, would you like to have coffee with me? Free consultation, I don't charge. We talk about all sorts of things. Several people in the room have had me over. We sit down, chat for an hour or 2 or 3, and we just talk about whatever needs that you have. Okay, Luciana, do you want to help me draw? Okay, why don't you hang on to that? All right, I'll go to it. Okay, Mary and Elle. $25 gift card.
Thank you. That's as far as I go.
Okay, pick another one. No peeking.
Natalie?
Natalie, first time.
Oh. Yay.
$25 gift card for you. Thank you so much for coming. Okay, now for ahead of dementia.
Sarah S.
Sarah, did Sarah make it today? Oh, good.
There you go.
Thank you.
You're welcome, congratulations. Okay, another ahead of dementia, written by the lovely Luciana.
Barbara D.
Barbara.
Oh, she didn't come today.
Nope, Barbara's here.
Oh,
Barbara D.
D.
You're Barbara A. That's okay. We'll give it to Barbara.
Barbara A. Garrison.
And for ahead of memory loss.
Del.
Go, for you.
There
Oh,
you
here.
are.
Oh, there you are. I knew you were here.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That's it. I'll make sure to hold on to those. Once again, thank you so much for coming. Luciana, Arlene, myself, we're all here for consultations for further information. I really appreciate your support and hope to see you again next month.